So this morning, we're going to talk about how to reboot our spiritual lives. I think all of us, from time to time, with our computers, we realize that they have crashed or frozen. Does this happen to your computer? When does it happen to your computer? Have you ever asked it, why did you crash? So my computer, when I ask it this question, says to me, you have given me too many conflicting messages. And I don't know which one you want me to execute. So shut down, make up your mind, and let's get started all over again. So it happens from time to time in our lives that our direction is not clear, and that there are many voices of the ego, telling us all of the different things that we must attend to. And at a certain point, our soul says, enough, bus. Okay? Make up your mind, get some clarity, and then let's move forward together. I don't know how many of you drive. I wanted to use some examples of driving, but there's probably none of you who drive a car. Okay, good. Some of you do. But do you know this? It's called the GPS. It tells you how to go, where to go. Yeah, it's fabulous. I think it's one of the great inventions of this century. Okay, there's how do they know? How do they know where you are? But it's wonderful because it's so symbolic, this GPS system, no? Because there is someone who always knows where we're going. And when we make a mistake, what does it do? It goes recalculating, or make a U-turn and go back. So this is what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be recalibrating a bit our spiritual life. We might need to make a U-turn and go in a different direction. We all know about the two forces of the universe. There's the force that created the universe and became so enthusiastic about creating that it keeps creating diversions, okay? Things that take our attention away from the creator and put it on the creation. Now this is a very strong force. We all know it. We're all subject to it. And we call it Maya. It's important that we recognize Maya, respect it, as a force, and come to perceive how it functions in our mind, in our lives. I'm not going to dwell too much on that. I want to talk about the other force of creation, which I call evolution. As we know, the infinite spirit, evolved this creation from his consciousness, from Satchitananda. And there is a force that is more powerful than Maya that is flowing like a torrent and sustaining us in a way, pushing us to evolve, to expand. Now, in our lives, our most important, what should I say, spiritual practice is getting in the river. Because once we're in the river will carry us. But Maya says, no, don't go in that direction. Or Maya says, okay, you're at the river, just stand on the bank, the river bank. Watch it flow. And don't get in. You don't want to get wet. Or we jump in the river and we go, oh, this is nice, but I have to make lunch. So we jump out of the river. And we go in the river and out of the river and in the river and out of the river. So, sometimes in our lives, due to life situations, we find that we are going in the wrong direction. We're not moving towards the river. We're not jumping in there. We're moving away from the river towards involvement in the Mayic diversions of life. Of course, each one of us comes with our karmic and even dharmic obligations, things that we need to do. And spiritual life in this age has a challenge for every one of us, which is to balance or to juggle. Do you all have jugglers there? Sometimes circus or on the street, keeping the different balls in the air without dropping. Okay. So this is the challenge of spiritual life in the modern age. None of us present is able at this time to go and live in a cave in the Himalayas. This is not the life that we chose. So here we are, and we need to learn to juggle and keep the ball of our spiritual life always in play. But sometimes it drops, doesn't it? For whatever reason. There's a million reasons. And I don't find it all that necessary to deeply analyze how Maya plays in our life. But remember that she plays. It is a Leela. Okay? And we want to recognize, bless you, Jagadish. You see, so nice to see you. We want to recognize her ploys, her tricks, okay? So that when we recognize, her voice in our head, her presence in the circumstance, that we are prepared for those moments, okay, to override the voice or to recalculate and go in the right direction. So Maya is always telling us to go in the opposite direction. And our soul is telling us to go towards the river and jump in to the river. Now, before we get into practical ways of how we can reboot our spiritual life, I'd like to remind us of something that we already know. And that is, regardless of what we do, of what we say, God sees the heart. He knows. He knows that we love him. He knows that we are trying. He knows that we want to go home. And he is helping us. He is sending us reminders. When we stray, he is even more present. Jesus said to his disciples, I did not come for the perfect ones. I have come for the sinners, for those who are making mistakes. And Master says, and the scriptures say, when we go astray, God is even more present. Now, we need to cooperate with the grace. Cooperate with the power of the river of evolution. We need to that's the grace, that's the 50%, that is God's responsibility. We need to cooperate with the 25% that is the Guru's responsibility. So our job is cooperating with the flow of evolution and the flow of grace in our lives. Now, one of the definitions of God realization given by Patanjali in the Yoga Sutras is Smriti, remembrance, to remember. So let's look at that one word, because it has many dimensions and subtleties. The macrocosmic Smriti is that our souls remember where we come from. That's part of our DNA. That is how we are made. So we know, the soul knows, the soul remembers the experience of union. The soul remembers the pathway back to the river. So there is this knowing in us. I was just taking a walk with a guest who's here, and he was telling me something that he has experienced that I think all of us here today have experienced. That as we hear the teachings, as we learn the techniques, there's something in us that says, yes, I know this. It's not new. Has that happened to you? Even when I arrived at Ananda, and it hardly existed then. It was just a forest and trees and wild animals. And as soon as I set foot on that place, something in me said, I know this. This is home. So our souls, and we've had this experience, say to us, this is home. Kriya practice is home. these chants are my home. So we know that. So our spiritual life is a way of awakening that memory. And this is a phrase that Swami Kriyananda often used, the way of awakening. And I believe that that was the name of Kriyanandaji's first television series in India. I don't know if anybody can confirm that. If you were present back at that time, it was 2004. He called it the way of awakening. So I think it's very helpful to realize that it's already in us, it's a part of us, and that we need to awaken it. We need to wake up, from the sleep of Maya. We need to recognize the different ways in which Maya is distracting us. And a practical part of Smriti is to set for ourselves reminders. And I'm going to be talking about that today. This is really the heart of the satsang, of different ways we can remind ourselves of the direction that we're going in, and can remind ourselves of that center, remind ourselves of how good we feel when we are in the flow of our spiritual practices. Remind ourselves of the joy that we experience. One thing that Swami Kriyananda suggests is that every time we sit to meditate, or maybe Master did, probably they both did, every time we sit to meditate, to remember, to call to mind the best meditation experience that we had. Just to remember how that felt and start our meditation from there. Just to start from joy rather than to start from a sense of struggle or a sense of obligation. Oh, I have to do this, and what if I don't do this? My life will be a disaster today. Okay? So to meditate, or to do what all of our spiritual practices from that memory of joy, of how much we enjoyed, and how our soul longs for that experience. It is home base for us. A mantra that I often use to remind me, a Smriti mantra for me, is my soul loves to meditate. And remember that mantra, and when you see that Maya, is telling you, oh, you have to do this, you have to do that. One of the things that Maya says, at least she says to me, is if you're going to meditate really well, you have to clear the deck of everything else. Just get your obligations out of the way, finish it all up, and then you'll be free to meditate. What a lie that is, right? But we fall into it. We do. Master recommends, and here's one little trick, and there's going to be lots of tricks, and you're going to hear many things now. I'm not suggesting that you do them all, but this is a menu for you, okay? So a rebooting menu, and then you select from the menu what is going to help you in any situation. Master says, as soon as you wake up in the morning, before you get out of bed, just sit up in bed, close your eyes, and meditate for a couple minutes. You know, even if it's just a minute, just boom, you sit up, 1 minute meditation. Just get centered. Then that becomes the point of reference for the day rather than your earthly obligations. The first thing we do in each day determines how that day is going to go. You know, do we get up and clean the dishes? Do we get up and whatever? Of course, we get up and go to the bathroom and so forth. But Master is saying before you even go to the bathroom, you know, unless you're desperate, just sit up, meditate. So let's all just try that tomorrow, just as an experiment. Okay, sit up, meditate, and go on. One of Master's disciples, it was either Kamala or sister Gyanamata. She did that every day. She would sit up and actually have her first meditation, just sitting in bed. Okay? So that's one little thing for your menu. So here are some other ways of reminding ourselves and how we can use the very techniques that we have to make that U-turn and go back to the river. All right. Do you have your telephone right now? I bet many of you do. If you have your telephone, I want you to pick it up, and I'm going to do the same thing. And I want you to open it to your daily calendar. Do you have your daily calendar in here? Okay. Now, open to calendar, to today. There we are. So, what's on your calendar? Okay. You are on my calendar at 6:30 in the morning. That's what time it is here. Okay. I have a lunch date with 2 guests, dear friends. They have spiritual names that I gave them some years ago. It's Shambhavi and Lalita. I'm going to have lunch with them. Okay. What else do you have? Bindu, I know you have an obligation and that you're going to have to leave soon. Now, let us determine at what time today we're going to meditate. Okay, so just think about it, and then I want you to push plus and add it to today. So just think about your day. I need to think about my day. And take a minute and put it in there. Okay. Okay, did you find your time? So put it in. And put in the time, at least your starting time. Don't put a finish time. And add. Okay, so do you have it? All right. Let's do this every day. Every day, you open your phone, you see what your appointments are. Maybe some of you also have a Google Calendar. I have a Google Calendar that is actually a Maha calendar that has about 6 different things in it, including my own personal appointments. So, as part of our little routine in the morning, after we finish our meditation and we open up, just put it in. What time today? And it could be any time. You know, maybe you look at your day and you say, you know, the best time for me is going to be at 12 o'clock. You know, because, I mean, tonight I have to, whatever, you know, go to dinner, or I have a conference, I have a webinar, I'm going to be busy from 6 until 9 at night, and then I'm going to eat. So for me, I'm going to do a half-hour meditation at noon. So it doesn't need to be in the evening. It doesn't need to be at any time. It just needs to be at some time that we can dedicate. Okay, so this is one trick for remembering. Now, you know, Maya takes over our day, okay? And she takes over our mind and keeps us away from thinking of God. So it's very helpful to have memory pegs throughout the day and to develop a little ritual. Okay. Perhaps some of you, perhaps many of you, perhaps all of you, or your mother does puja in the morning, in the evening. No, you're all modern. Okay. But you know, rituals are important. Okay. Now, the puja can be a very external thing, you know, very automatic, without much involvement of our feelings and so forth. But I think that each one of us needs to develop our ritual of remembering, our little Smriti ritual that we perform at certain points during the day. And I'm suggesting a very short little ritual. I'm talking maybe like a 1-minute ritual. Now, yeah, I have an iWatch. And my iWatch is programmed to remind me about things. Okay, I don't know who did it, but every every hour there's a little beep, and it says to me, stand up. Can you imagine that? It tells me stand up. And I have decided that, you know, I have to stand up at least 10 hours during it. Anyway, when it does that, I stand up. And I do a few double breaths. Yeah, I walk in place. And then it goes, okay. And I sit down. It also reminds me of something else. This is a very spiritual watch. It gives me another sign, and it says, breathe. Really, it says, it goes whoop, and it has a little circle, and it goes breathe. So when it says that, I stop and I do 2 kriyas, and then I go on. Okay, so we need to establish a little ritual and a practical way of reminding ourselves. So technology can be our friend. So program your smartphone, program your computer, get somebody to help you program it, so that every hour, you know, it says something to you, or it beeps, or it plays a music, or whatever it is, and you develop a little ritual, you know, a Smriti ritual. For example, you know, in 1 minute, what can you do? You can do double breath, tense and relax a few times. You can do a quick 20-part body recharging. And then you can do a touch of light. Put your finger here, for about 15 seconds. And do whatever. Chant Om Guru, or do a Kriya, or do just a couple cycles of Hong Sa, and then go on. Okay. So you understand the purpose of this. It's that we don't permit Maya to take over our day and so what we do is we come back to home base. Okay, we're always coming back. I often use the example of tennis players. After they strike the ball, they immediately go to center court. Okay, if you watch a tennis match, you will see that the person who wins commands center court. And from the center, they are able to go in any direction, left, right, front, or back. Okay, but Maya is going to shoot the ball to us way on the left and make us go there. And then we stay there and we don't come back to center court. Okay, develop your little ritual and stick with that ritual. Okay, stick with it so that you see, repetition is an important element of developing habit patterns. Okay. Repetition, so it's always the same. So you take your 60 seconds and that's what you do. You do 3 double breath, you relax, you do 20 parts, you do this, Om Guru, whatever it is. And it's always that, in that order. Okay. Then your soul, the soul call is always active. Okay. And you have the response, you have the strength, you have the defense mechanism against Maya. Otherwise, we're vulnerable. There's no shield of spiritual strength when we just leave ourselves open to Maya throughout the day. Now, let me see. When Maya begins to creep into your mind, she has certain, she has certain rituals for each one of us. Kind of Maya customizes what she says to each one of us, and she learns, it's just like a smartphone that learns about our preferences, or the computer that keeps sending us ads for something that we're interested in. So you need to recognize her when she comes in the door and immediately have your defense ready. Okay, already ready. So how does she come in? How does she come into your door? I've mentioned one way of, I need to finish all of my obligations or finish this project or whatever it is, and then I can do my spiritual practice. So one of the most famous sutras of Jesus is, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God." Now there's a second part. And, can you finish it? "All these things shall be added unto you." Okay. So all of the things that we want to be added are our ability to perform our karmic and dharmic obligations. Okay. We want to do that because there is a satisfaction in meeting our obligations. But first, we seek the kingdom of God. So again, it's just coming to center. I don't know if you know the episode, the story from the Bible. Do you know about Martha and Mary, the two sisters? Is that something familiar to you? Jesus and his disciples go to visit his very good friends, the two sisters, Mary and Martha, and their brother Lazarus. Okay, so this is a family of 3 siblings, and you probably know that Lazarus dies, and one of the greatest miracles of Jesus is that he raises Lazarus from the dead. He was dead 3 days. Okay, now Jesus was very close to that family. They lived right on the route, right on the road between Jerusalem and the Galilee. Okay, so Jesus and his disciples would pass by their place, and he would stop and so forth. So you remember the story, maybe, that he's there. He comes, and I think that maybe they had the habit of coming just around mealtime, because the story takes place that Jesus comes with his disciples. He's sitting in the living room talking. Martha is in the kitchen cooking. You know, there they are. Oops, woo. They just, you know, they didn't have WhatsApp and cell phones at that time, you know, so they probably just appeared, you know, here we are. And so Martha says, okay, I have to feed these people. You know, you always want to feed the guru, you know. And Mary is not in the kitchen. She's sitting with the disciples listening to Jesus. Okay, so you remember this? So Martha, and here we see the sweetness, actually, the tenderness of the relationship that Jesus had with his disciples, because Martha comes in and scolds Jesus. Can you imagine that? Okay, but that's how close they were. And she says, Lord, I'm busy in the kitchen. Mary's sitting here. Please send her. Send her in the kitchen. I need her help. Okay, so I think that's a very touching part of it, you know, that Martha can do that. And the reply of Jesus is so important for our spiritual lives. And let us all remember it. And this is exactly, at least what the Gospels say, that Jesus responds. Martha, Martha. So, you know, this is it. You know, he's saying, Martha, I love you. And he repeats her name. Martha, Martha, you are troubled and worried about many things. But Mary has chosen the better part, and it will not be taken away from her. Okay, let's look at that. So each one of us has Martha and Mary inside. Okay, so the Martha voice, okay, this is Maya, the Martha Maya, is saying to us, you have many things that you need to do. And we're troubled and we're worried. You know, do I have enough time? Can I get it done? How can I do everything I need to do, you know, and still have time? So Martha, Martha, you are troubled and worried. So Jesus did not say to her, stop cooking and come and sit here. No, he didn't say that. What he said to her was, stop being troubled and worried. You know, this is not the attitude with which to live. Anxiety, tension. Okay. So, stop being troubled and worried. It's your ego that thinks you are doing it. Now, he makes an observation about Mary. And what does he say? 2 things. Mary has chosen the better part, and it will not be taken away from her. So what did Mary choose? Mary chose to sit and be centered and absorb, okay? To be in the remembrance, to be in the presence of God. And that won't be taken away from her. That will always stay. But Martha, no matter how many things that you do, when you die, they will be taken away. It doesn't matter what we accomplish. You know? It doesn't matter how many meals we have done or how much we, supported this or that. None of that matters, and it will be taken away. But Mary, in her attunement, that will stay with us for eternity. And so, in our lives, we need to combine Martha and Mary, that with the remembrance of God, we are doing things. So we are making that lunch or dinner. Gosh, do you make your own lunch or dinner? Well, if you don't make your own, then at least you eat it. Okay? So with the remembrance of God, and the little ritual of praying before we eat. Okay? So the same thing, we come back to center. Now there's the food, it's material, it smells wonderful, I can't wait to eat it. But before we do, we have the little ritual in which we offer the food and our gratitude. We remember that it's God in the food. We remember that God is nourishing us through that food and in other ways. So these memory pegs and regularity, thinking about meals. Okay. So one of the principles of Ayurveda, the science of life, is to eat regularly and at the same time, because there are times during the day when the body is more able to digest food. Okay, so, and to eat 3 meals a day, or to eat, more, smaller meals. Anyway, it's the timing. So the regularity. Now, we all eat, that's one of the fixed points in our life. We can use that fixed point to fit in a little remembrance before we do it. Now, perhaps some of you take some medicines or supplements, and some of those supplements say, take before eating. So let's do the spiritual supplement before eating. And again, we can have the little ritual that before we sit down to eat, we have a 5-minute meditation. The mini meditation, you're dedicating time to eat, whatever that time is. So the first 5 minutes, we go and meditate. Do 6 kriyas. Get centered. Pray. Whatever you are able to do that day. And then go and eat. Swami Kriyananda, if you remember in his autobiography, when he was living at Mount Washington, he had this very ritual. They ate together, they had their mensa, whatever it's called, their food together. Apparently it was served to them. And they would all stop their service and then go into the dining room and get their food. Now, do you remember what Swami would do? he would get his food, set it aside, go to meditate for a half an hour, then come back and eat his food. Okay. So again, this point of reference, this turning around, make a U-turn from being involved in outward going energy, the U-turn and come back to center. Okay, so again, the memory pegs, the every hour, your watch, your computer, before a meal. What else does, okay. So Maya also can say to us, if you want to meditate really well, you need to meditate for a long time. It has to be the right place. It has to be quiet, like putting all of these conditions that, you can't meditate unless all of these things are just right. Okay. So let's recognize that and realize that we can do the coming back to center anytime, anywhere. Even if you're in a meeting with other people, even if you're on Zoom, and you're in a 3-hour meeting, what can you do? You can do what as some of you have done, at least right now, is turn off the video, for a minute and center. Do a few kriyas or a few hong sa, and then put your video on again and come back. Okay? If you work in an office, just have these moments. And when Maya says to you, you have to, it can always say to you, well, I'm so busy, I'll wait till the weekend, and I'll go to my country house, or I'll go up to Rishikesh, or I'll whatever, and then I'll meditate there. Okay. So just be aware that when that voice comes in, you go, no, not true, big lie, fake news. It's not true, and it's so not true that I'm just going to close my eyes and do something. All right. Let's see what else Maya says, and I'm sure you have your own list. Maya will, when we are meditating and our mind is restless, what does Maya say? She says, a bad meditation is worthless. So just get up, it's better that you do something, focus your energy, or better, just go to sleep. If you're going to fall asleep in your meditation, you might as well just go to bed. Okay. And pulling us out of meditation. Master says that the strongest, what do I want to say? The strongest delusion of Maya is to keep us away from meditating. Maya is really worried when we meditate and will do everything that she can to take us out of it. So during your meditation, when your mind becomes restless, we need to have a bag of tricks to bring us back to focus. So here's some of the things that can be in your bag of tricks. One of them is pranayama. Okay, so when your mind wanders, just right away do some alternate breathing. Maybe just 1 round, 2 rounds, or even breathing. So you see Maya, the mind is being distracted. And then you can have like a default of what you do so that it becomes automatic. So it could be pranayama. It could be a chant. Okay. When my mind wanders, I'm going to sing this chant mentally. And it's find the chant that works for you and use that. Okay? So it becomes a groove in your mind. Whatever it is. You know, it could be door of my heart. It could be Lord, I am thine. Whatever. Okay. So that's in your bag of tricks. It could be an energy boost at that moment. Okay, your mind wanders and your response is double breath, tense, and relax 6 times, whatever, as many times as you need to in order to come back to center. Okay. It could be, what else? We just did a class. We had our meditation intensive with the meditation teachers, trainees, and every year they need to come and we do a 5-day meditation retreat of 6 hours of meditation every day. So we talk a lot about what we can do when the mind begins to wander. I have a friend, her name is Yashoda. She has a very unusual and personal way of doing it. So Yashoda, as you can imagine, is very devoted to Krishna. And she loves the stories from Srimad Bhagavatam. So when her mind starts to wander, she imagines one of the stories from Srimad Bhagavatam. She just kind of plays it, you know, in her mind, you know, like a little theater, you know. So she has the screen and she sees the little, and that's how she comes back. So you see how personal, you know, you can personalize, you know, very much. One way of bringing the mind back, of course, is Kriya, the practice of Kriya. Now, it is possible for the mind to wander in Kriya, but it's often your best answer to the wandering mind. You know, just come back and do some Kriya. Let me see here. Another, let's see, where are we? Is this 7:30? We're close. Another memory peg that can help in meditation, after meditation, and during the day is the practice of japa or affirmation. Now, Swami's book, Affirmations for Self-Healing, is designed to have an affirmation for each week of the year. There are 52 affirmations. Okay? If you use that book and really use it in your life so that every Sunday, and here in our Sunday satsangs, we repeat the affirmation for that week. And then take that affirmation and make it a part of your ritual. You know, so that in your mini meditation or mini centering ritual, you come back and you say that. It could be one of the affirmations from the yoga postures that you use, not just if you do yoga or when you do yoga, but you might have a favorite yoga affirmation. I am calm, I am poised. Okay, so this is what? This is Vrikasana. I am calm, I am poised. okay, and you use that. Or with a burst of energy, I rise to meet the day. So our path is so full of these memory pegs, okay? And we come back to it. Now, I'd like to talk about environment, and then I'll give you a chance to ask questions and to offer your own suggestions for memory pegs, your little Smriti rituals. Master has said environment is stronger than willpower. Now, the environment that we want to be in is that river of evolution, the environment of Om. So if in your environment, if it's in your house where you can control your environment, keep the Om playing. Just constantly, you know, keep your phone or your computer, your iPod. Do you still use iPods? Just keep the Om going, very soft, so that there's always that vibration going. The japa, if you have a japa mantra, keep it going throughout the day. Get it, instill it deeply in your consciousness so that it begins to repeat itself. One of the mantras, japa mantras that Swami Kriyananda suggests is simply Om Guru. So remember, Guru has responsibility for 25% of our spiritual journey. So we want to activate him, you know. I mean, he's not asleep, but at least activate our memory that he is there, ready to provide the 25%. Okay, so with the Om Guru, whenever I walk, and I mean whenever I walk, if I go from this room into the kitchen, you know, there's a certain number of steps. I'm always saying Om Guru when I walk, always Om Guru, Om Guru. It's just there. It's automatic, okay? And that's a wonderful way to keep us in the environment, in the flow of the river. Okay? Japa is a powerful practice, not when it's done automatically, you know, like a robot. I visited Brindaban many years ago and stopped by the temple where the widows were doing the Hare Krishna mantra. It was not inspiring because it was just as though a Victrola was playing. And I must say, at least my particular experience, when I go to Rishikesh, which I do every year except last year, I visit the Shivananda ashram, Shivananda of Rishikesh, and there is a little mandir there where for, I don't know, 20, 30, 50 years, they have been doing Maha Mantra without stopping, okay? Which is a nice thought, but again, was not inspired there. I went and sat and just couldn't be there because it was just, you know, it was just playing. I mean, people were saying it, and I could tell that their minds were somewhere else. Okay, so just the small dose, you know, of japa, just the Om Guru, that brings to mind the feeling, the image, the eyes of the Guru, and it just brings us back, you know, to our love for the Guru and the Guru's love for us. Okay, so to apply each of the techniques also in small doses. So the mini meditation, the little rituals during the day, the japa, the touch of light, which you can do at any time. Again, even if you're in a conference, you can, just pretend that you're thinking and just, with your finger, push it in. Let's just do that right now. So sit up, take your right forefinger, put it on your spiritual eye, and just do whatever you're going to do. Say Om Guru, or feel his touch. He's touching you. Awakening, the way of awakening. Om Guru, Om. And done. Okay? Just a 10-second coming back. Okay? Turning around and going towards the river. All right, so this is a menu of ways to reboot. Remember that Master understands us, he loves us, he doesn't judge us, we judge ourselves. Anytime we want to, we say, get back on the horse. Okay, there's a saying that it's from horse riding. If you fall off a horse when you're riding, you have to get back on the horse right away. Okay, not wait and worry. So when we fall off, of our spiritual practice, we just get back on. But with these mini rituals. So Smriti, okay, coming back to our remembrance, okay, helping ourselves to remember.